All right, I see the phone line starting to heat up now. Hi, everyone. It's Jason.
Hello.
And
Hi,
everyone.
Jason.
Morning.
Hi. Sounds like everyone can hear me okay. Give a holler if you can. All right, I'm sure people will still trickle in here in the next few minutes, but I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And I'm talking today about the Shoreline Monitoring Toolbox. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This has been work that I've been doing along with PSEMP and Washington Sea Grant, and along with the PSEMP Nearshore Work Group has been great for providing technical advice on the protocols and whatnot. There's a URL. I've been building this toolbox on this Google website, and there's now a Washington Sea Grant URL that will redirect you to that, so it's a little easier to remember, and it's listed there. So I'm going to start off by having just a couple slides here as an introduction, and to give you a heads up on what you're in for the next hour, here's a brief outline. So I'm going to take 10 minutes here just kind of as an overview and background, and mainly just to give time for people to trickle in as well. And if you're in the Nearshore Work Group, some of this you will already know already, but for the benefit of everyone, I wanted to get everyone on the same ground level. By 10:10, I'm going to shift over to the web page and walk you through that and show you the different elements that are on the web page. And then by 10:20 into 10:30, I'll focus on the two main components of the toolbox, which are protocols. There's 15 of them, and the decision tree that will help you decide which protocols to use. Then I'll shift back to PowerPoint and talk about next steps and have some discussion and feedback. And I want this to be very informal. I wanted to have it be a webinar just so a lot of people could listen in. And if you have comments at all throughout this, definitely pipe up. And I'll even say that right now. Does anyone have any questions on this outline or key points they would like me to focus on? Excellent. And I always take silence to be a good thing. Okay, I'm showing this slide often when I talk about this. So going back over a year ago to the Shoreline Restoration Monitoring Consortium, some of you were there. It was out at the Kitsap out there. And these are notes from that conference. So part of the main bullet points that came up was that we need to define needs and guidance for conducting monitoring. At restored sites, there is a restoration focus for that. There needs to be some standardized methodologies that are simple and affordable for volunteers to be trained to do. So there was a volunteer emphasis there as well. Local groups need the experience and technical assistance to set up their monitoring for projects. And also kind of related to all that, what are the appropriate indices for monitoring? So it was really encouraging to come out of that, and now here we are a little over a year later and to have made some progress on this. So this happened based on this idea and then with some funding from EPA coming through the partnership to Sea Grant to me. So that's kind of the train of how it happened. The intended use is for the shoreline monitoring and management community. So at that consortium, there is a mixture of volunteer groups, agencies, and consultants. These are all people who have monitoring needs and would appreciate some guidance. Protocols for monitoring restoration sites and evaluating status and trends. That's the main thing we're focusing on with the toolbox. And again, this is in the Puget Sound nearshore, so this isn't going up into the delta habitats as much. Some of the protocols definitely relate, but we wanted to focus on the nearshore to start. A decision tree to guide monitoring choices. And again, this is coordinated with the PSEMP Nearshore Work Group for technical guidance. And we decided early on to have the format be completely web-based. We wanted to be able to edit this as we went and to be really open with what was being included. And we also wanted to be a bit of a living document. So a purpose of today is to get it out there and vet where it's at. And I really want to take the word draft off of the web page and have it be a stable thing. And also be able to edit it in the future when there's updates that can be made. So I'm going to shift over now to the web page. Does anyone have any questions on this intro part? So, and I'm hoping everyone's seeing my screen okay. I've tried to make it as big as possible, and I think it would probably be easiest if you follow along the screen share, but also if you want to have the web page up on your computer. Again, if you type in Washington Sea Grant, so just wsg.washington.edu, and add Toolbox at the end, it's just a redirect at this point, and it's going to redirect you to this Google website. The Google URL is just really cumbersome, so we wanted to make it easier for people to remember. So this is what you see if you go to the website. And the main components are highlighted here. There's the decision tree, there's the protocols, there's a section of data management, and also references that can help you out in planning. And most of these are on the sidebar over here too. The two other ones that are not are intended use and additional information. And the intended use I basically just went over in the PowerPoint, but if you are curious who this is intended for, it's just 2 small paragraphs detailing what I did in PowerPoint. And the additional information is just my contact information and other little tidbits there. So I'm going to start off by walking through some of the protocols so folks know what's out there. And if you have any edits or suggestions for this, you know, again, feel free to pipe up while I'm talking or take some notes, and we can talk about them near the end of the webinar, or you can even, you know, sleep on it and email me later in the week if you have a few thoughts. Okay, so I'm going to go in here to the protocols themselves, and I'm not going to walk you through every protocol, but I want to give you kind of the format for what's there. So if you click on the protocols, they are listed here, and there are 15 of them that we prioritized, and that prioritization was based on ones that came out of that consortium that were important. So there's some documents and literature that came out of that, and we also did some searches just for what are people using in their monitoring plans, and how can we get this out there in a format that's user-friendly and makes it easy for people to locate. So, I mean, that's important to recognize that these are not new protocols per se. A lot of these are just making them more easily available. And some of that is from hearing from volunteer groups, too, that when they're looking for monitoring, they have to go to these technical reports that are meant for scientists. They're meant for the scientific community to see a really basic statement on methods so people can try to replicate that. And that's not always the best way to actually teach people how to do things if you want it to be really user-friendly for multiple users. So we wanted to make them readily available, and we also wanted to include ones that might be hard for people to locate and might not be in digital form. So they're listed here in four different main components. There's some physical ones, sediment size and beach profile. There's ones that deal with vegetation, eelgrass, and logs. So eelgrass, beach rack, which is the stuff that washes up on the beach on an ebbing tide. So that's broken down eelgrass and algae and leaf litter. Logs and riparian vegetation up in the upland area. And other vegetation such as dune grass and other vegetation growing on the beach. Going down into animals, we have birds and insects, and then different categories of invertebrates. So the invertebrates living in the rack, epibenthic invertebrates, which are small, mostly crustaceans and polychaetes and other invertebrates living on top of sediment. Surface epifauna and algae, these are quadrats for what's growing on top of sediments. Benthic invertebrates living in the sediments, and then going into forage fish eggs and fish. And then at the bottom, I put photo points separately just to characterize habitat conditions. It seems like a lot of people are taking photos, and we thought it would be good to have some guidelines for types of photos and what they might be able to tell you. So these are the ones listed right here, and then just briefly here next to them are what the protocols are going to be about. So I'm going to just click on the first one, sediment size. And for each one of these, if you click on them, you're going to get a summary purpose here. And for instance, this one is just telling you that characterizing sediment sizes tells you information about the physical structure of the beach. Most of them detail something and why they might change, such as winter storms, restoration activities, and shoreline armoring. and then what they can affect. Sediment size can affect the type of invertebrates that live there, and also with beach spawning forage fish. So that just quickly kind of gives you a summary of what it's for. And then the way the Google site works is attachments are at the bottom of the pages. So on this PDF down here, if you just click on that and open it. So for each one of these, we wanted to have a standard one-page protocol that would be easy to view and have the main information you will need to conduct this protocol. So I'm just going to walk you through this one because these components are the same for every protocol. So at the top is this summary purpose again. So this is basically the same thing that's on the web page. It goes into the methods here in detail on what you would need to do this protocol. It highlights the data to record in the field while you're out there so you can plan for that. And then it details the main processing components to think about after you collect the data. So this kind of gets you used to the whole process if you wish to use this protocol. And on the orange sidebar on all of them, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so folks can see a little better. So the materials here, this is so you can plan specifically what you need to bring in the field. For this, you would need a transect tape, a quadrat, and a hand trowel. A sampling summary, so how long is the transect, what size is the quadrat, how many quadrats should you take data from, what elevations should you do transects at, and the main data that you're collecting. And an important one that we came up with that's consistent across all the protocols is the scale of effort. So when you're planning something, you want to know some main elements about the protocol. What's it going to cost? How many people will you need in the field? How much fieldwork time will you need? The processing time it will take to process that data you collect, and how much technical expertise you will need. So we put these in general, low, medium, and high categories. So for instance, for the sediments, the cost is pretty low. The materials are simple. 2 to 3 people can do that, and that really is consistent across all these protocols. We wanted to include ones where 2 to 3 people could take care of it. Fieldwork time is fairly low, 1 day once or twice a year for this. Processing time is low because it's all field collected data. And the technical expertise is medium just because it is useful to have some background information on sediment size classes. And then the bottom part of this orange sidebar here is additional resources. So it will direct you to reports that have used this method. And for most reports, this is all hyperlink friendly. So if you click on this, I don't think for this one I put the exact attachment, but it will lead you to a Google Scholar search so that it'll pop up right away. And it also details other methods. So we decided to put for sediment sizes, quadrat sampling, and there's some other common methods that are done for sediment sizes. A really common one is this row tap, shaker, and sieve analysis. You do need some supplies to do that correctly. And then there's also ways you can do with digital photographs using this CobbleCam technique. So we wanted to make sure that they were out there, and if you had those resources and the technical expertise, that would be the way to go. And another reason I included the quadrats is with Megan Detier's arming project that we've been working on, we actually tested all 3 of these and found that they were fairly consistent in the data they generated, and that's what we actually used in this publication that came out was the quadrat data. So we felt that was a good way to present it to multiple users. So since this is the first protocol I've walked through, does anyone have any questions kind of on the format and what's included here?
Well, this is Heather Trim. I'm wondering if you have a way to sort of link these more explicitly to the causes.
So what kind of causes are you thinking of?
Well, for example, a little paragraph or a little something in each of these that says this particular item that we're looking at could have impairments based on blank and then describe that, blank and describe that, and blank and describe that. So a little bit more kind of background about why this particular, what causes this particular item that is being, that could be impaired.
All right, that is good. And so some of that I think some of that I have here really briefly on the web page. So it says this may change depending on such actions as winter storms, restoration activities, and shoreline armoring. But it sounds like that's something that I could beef up. So thank you, Heather. And as other comments come up, I'm going to be writing these down so that I have a laundry list of things that can be worked on in the future.
Jason?
Does that get at what you're asking about, Heather?
That does. Thank you very much.
All right.
Jason, this is Deb Rudnick.
Go ahead, Deb. I can hear you fine.
Along with what Heather was asking about, I read this, the purpose, at the top of this sheet, and I think that's great. I wonder if you might just add a subhead or something like, why measure this? Make it really clear that that's what you're talking about right up top.
And so that you're thinking would be on this one-page protocol itself up at the top there.
Yeah. Or on the website.
Jason?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Alan Chapman. Along the same lines as Heather was talking about, somewhere, maybe not directly here, but if your interest is this, then you want to do this level of sediment or this level of investigation, and something to give folks who are not familiar with things what they ought to be looking at if they've got a concern.
Great. And Alan, keep that comment in mind. I'm going to write it down here so I can think about that more for each protocol, but keep that in mind when I get to the decision tree, because it may be something that I could beef up in the decision tree part of the website as well. Okay, any other comments out there on kind of the format of the protocol?
Jason, this is Barbara Bennett.
Hi, Barbara.
And I think it's very presentable, and it's a very easy. It's assembled in a way that I think will be very friendly for the users. So I want to thank you for that. I'll be real interested to see about the processing piece and how to take data and make statements that are accurate and meaningful.
Okay, and that's always a challenge. So I'll talk briefly about data management a bit, and that's something we're hoping to keep developing really in the next year, even as this hopefully gets used more.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to move on. And again, if something crosses your mind during any of this, feel free to jot it down and send me an email later as well. As you can tell, I'm a bit congested, so hopefully my voice will last throughout this. So I wanted to kind of walk through at least one protocol from each section so people have an idea of what's there. So down in the vegetation, eelgrass, and logs in beach rack, again, it has kind of the same summary type material, and when appropriate in locations too have hyperlink to other protocols. You'll see a lot of hyperlinks around. So if you do beach rack, you may also want to look at pitfall trap sampling of invertebrates that live there and maybe surveys for shorebirds. And again, to pull up the protocol that goes along with this, this again has the same format, and so I just want to show this one because there's nothing life-changingly different about the format or the way this is presented. It has the same web page, It has the same summary information, and again, some links to additional resources. And I wanted to pull up this one again so that if people look at these later and they have other additional resources you think they could be directed to maybe glance at some of these later and see if I've covered a good basis for that. I didn't want it to be too cluttered. For this one, I have 2 recent publications that have used this type of protocol. But I thought about putting together a more complete bibliography as well at some point. So if you have other additional resources for any of these, please let me know. That's beach rack, and there's other ones there dealing with logs and vegetation. Going down into the animal world, rack invertebrates. So this would detail, again, the invertebrates that live in that rack. For some of them too, once I get down into the animals, I've tried to find links that will help you with the taxonomy. So beach hopper amphipods are something that lives in the rack that is one of the most numerous taxa that lives there. So I included a brief section here on just details for identifying them. It's not a full taxonomic resource, but it kind of gives you the main 3 species that live there if you wish to go to that level. And also has a link to a key that will help you identify those 2 species. So some of the hyperlinks also lead to where I could find them reports that were freely available online. So this is an older report by Bousfield from 1982, and it's available online. So I wanted to have that up there if people wanted to get to that level. Okay. Aha. So other protocols that I wanted to show quick. So not all of them did I. The only one that I did not develop a separate 1-page sheet was forage fish eggs, and that's because WDFW is on it. For that, I simply put why they're important. I think that it's pretty commonly known around Puget Sound why they are important, but this will just link you to the WDFW page, so you'll have all the resources there. Fish is kind of a meaty topic, and so I have more on the fish one than I do at the other ones, and I wanted to walk you through it quickly just so you know kind of what else could be included on each of these sites as we develop them more in the future if we need to do that. So again, for fish, the main purpose up here and why you would want to monitor them. Netting is a topic that a lot of people are doing, and really it has a lot more logistical constraints of permitting and boat and personnel and training needs. So we felt that a lot of people netting out there are already linked into someone who knows how to do it. So I put a separate tab here on resources for beach staining. It will direct you to the state and federal fish permits you would need to collect, and direct you to NOAA, the tribes, some educational locations where you could link up with the experts doing the netting. And really we felt that was the most appropriate way to get that out there. Also because floating beach stains are documented in the Estuarine Habitat Assessment Protocol, and that hasn't changed over the years. So we put a link to that right there. So the protocol that we put out here was for snorkel methods. And so for the snorkeling, I also put some underwater video and photograph pages. So the good thing is having this in Google is we can edit it whenever. I can put up video of what fish look like underwater, and so that will help you be able to see, say, juvenile chum feeding, so that when you see them out there, you'll be better able to be informed before you go out and what these fish look like when they're swimming underwater. So it is possible to put videos up, and also photographs. Sometimes just photographs of the sampling, having more photographs can help people plan. So again, what does it look like when you're snorkeling? What's the underwater tablet look like? Getting some more information out there. And this is certainly something that we could feed into a lot of the protocols in the future. And also some more links just on identifying juvenile salmon and whatnot. So the snorkel survey protocol, again, is similar in format to all the other ones. This one is probably the highest on the scale of effort. Just it costs high amount for getting all the gear you need to snorkel and technical expertise. I wanted to show this one too because I have put a safety section in the sampling summary for certain ones, just to be aware that, you know, don't get in the water unless you feel comfortable doing that. And also with some of the invertebrates, when there's formalin or alcohol involved, just be sure you're aware of the safety protocols for that. And then, so talking about data management, this is one that we've really just started to address. And for the fish one, we put up Excel spreadsheet both for in the field when you're collecting that and also for data entry. And this is one I hope to get for every protocol that's out there. So the field data sheet is what we use when we're in the field, and these can be printed out on waterproof paper and really just clipped on to a tablet to bring underwater. So we want to make that information out there so that people don't need to spend time recreating that. And again, also having a format for how to enter that once you collect the data. And again, I just have these up so far for the snorkel methods, but I wanted to show you where we're hopefully going with this. So this just gives a format for how to enter that data and gives an example from a data set so that you can see what it looks like. And we hope that this will provide some consistency across groups for the data entry, because that's huge if you ever want to try to combine different data sets. Okay, the last protocol I wanted to show you was photo points. And this was a fun one to make because, again, a lot of people take photos and kind of wonder what to do with them. So I encourage people to check out the photo point one, because I think also it spans a lot of different knowledge bases, because everyone takes photos nowadays. So we got together the main reasons people take photos. So you can take annual photo points at precise locations and compass bearings. Taking a panorama of the site is useful. Relating to other protocols, such as if you're laying a transect, take one from both directions of the transect so you can verify location later, and if you have a question on the habitat surrounding that transect, you can at least look at a picture of it. And then photos useful for identifications of, say, plants, algae, and invertebrates. And again, linking to other places, the Marine Shoreline Design Guidelines that recently came out also has some good suggestions for photos. So look through that one when you have a chance, if you're a person who likes to take photos, and see if you have any thoughts on that. Okay, it is 10:30, and I'm going to shift over to talking about the decision tree. Does anyone else have any questions or points on the protocol section?
Jason, can you hear me? This is Jeff.
Yeah, hey Jeff.
Hey, I had a comment on the protocol. So in many cases, you actually recommended a number of replicates or the length of a transect, and in a lot of cases that might not be appropriate to the actual conditions that somebody has. So I would give some thought to talking about that. I mean, we know in a lot of cases 7 replicates for epibenthic samples is not enough, and you know, you need to do a power analysis and whatnot. And that kind of leads to the bigger question, and you don't have a protocol or a section on data analysis, and you just tell somebody to hire a professional statistician, or do you actually want to go there as to data analysis?
All good points. So maybe I need to put something. I have a bit of that. What your comment on replication and transect length, I have a bit of that somewhere that I'll try to pinpoint in the next 20 minutes. But maybe I should put that here at the top of this protocol section just to make it clear that these all can be site dependent and goal dependent.
Yeah, I might even go so far as to, like, for example, for the snorkeling, just say a transect of appropriate length based on the site or something like that, rather than actually say do a 75 meter long transect.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'll put that clear somewhere up here up front and then look through each protocol. And you're totally right. You know, a lot of these we just wanted to put a standard in case the site conditions weren't an issue, just so that people would know what to use as a default. And you know, your question on data analysis is totally loaded and a good question as well. And I think a lot of people are struggling with that. You know, hopefully we can develop the data management enough that we can get to a point where we suggest a few different metrics people could calculate. Simple graphing of their data to make it presentable is a good start. So, you know, that one's a tough one to tackle, but hopefully we can inform that more in the future as well.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments on this protocol section before I move to the decision tree? Okay, so when you click on the decision tree, you're going to get just small thumbnail images of the different materials here. And again, everything's going to be in PDF at the bottom of the page. The decision tree proper is an actual tree, and I'm going to come to that last actually. I want to start with these three ones here, the scale of effort, title elevations, and protocol purpose, because these were built from the information in each protocol. So I think they'll be pretty quick to walk through. So for instance, for the scale of effort, all we did is we took all the different scales of effort that were developed for each one and made a simple grid of it. So we have the protocols here listed, and then along the top are the cost, people, fieldwork time, processing time, and technical expertise. And it is color-coded to be shaded with light being a low scale of effort, medium blue a medium scale of effort, and dark blue a high scale of effort. So this will be, you'll be able to eyeball fairly quickly overall what the scale of effort is across different protocols. So that is there. The other one that got built from the protocols themselves is having all of the protocol purposes in one place. So this simply lists each protocol, the main functions or habitat that it addresses, and then has that purpose statement here so that if you want to look across all of them and say, okay, what functions and habitat do these protocols address and what purposes, they're all listed there. And the third one that kind of came out of the protocol development was title elevations. When you're monitoring in the near shore, sometimes what you want to use is really dictated by what elevation you know your focus is at. If you're only focusing on the upper intertidal or super intertidal, then you're only going to want to use protocols that are meant for that. So I just took a profile photograph. This is of Seahurst Park North before they did the restoration. And I just put each one of the protocols and put a little line between mean low water and mean high water of where those protocols are located. And these are all hyperlinked. If you know you want to sample epibenthic invertebrates and you click on that, it's going to take you to the web page. So those three resources are there, and I'm going to switch now to the decision tree so you can see how we put it all together. So the decision tree is meant to help people try to decide which protocols to use. So if you start at the top, the project type, if you're interested in doing a status and trends along a section of beach, it will lead you over to here. If you're not sure what to monitor, it's going to lead you directly to those 3 other PDFs I pulled up on tidal elevation, scale of effort, and purpose and functions. And that will help you decide, based on the information there, and what you might want to monitor. And again, this is for status and trends. And then if you have a monitoring subject in mind, if you think, well, I want to go to this beach and I'm curious about birds, this will just lead you to the protocol summary table so that you can pick that monitoring subject out. So status and trends is really just directing you to those resources. With restoration, we want to be a little more explicit and try to recommend certain protocols. So at the top, again, it will lead you to the scale of effort and tidal elevation because some monitoring goals are very much defined by those. And the restoration type, we highlighted 3 restoration or rehabilitation efforts that were recently came out in the Marine Shoreline Design Guidelines in the hopes that, well, that's going to be used more, and if we can link to that, it's going to make the greater effort better. So the 4 we pulled out were beach nourishment when you're adding sediments to a beach, placement of large wood, which would be a soft shoreline armoring, reslope and revegetation of the uplands, and bulkhead removal. So for each of those, we had some target functions or habitat that those are addressing, and we limited ourselves to 4 so that we could be decisive about this. It's not inclusive of everything, of course, but we thought that these were the main 4 that these restoration types are addressing. And so based on those functions and habitat, the 4 protocols that we would recommend you start with in order to assess that restoration type. And again, these are all hyperlinked. For example, with beach nourishment, you would be led down to, okay, that's meant to target beach structure, forage fish spawning, food web prey availability, and fish habitat. And the protocols it will lead you to are beach profile, forage fish eggs, sediment size, and benthic invertebrates. And again, these would all link if you say, okay, cool, beach profile, it's going to lead you directly to the web page. So the decision tree area is probably a lot to incorporate into your brains at one time. So I hope that I've at least shown you the resources that are there. And does anyone have any questions on the format of that right now or any thoughts? And again, feel free to get a hold of me at a later date if things creep into your mind.
Yeah, this is Heather. So Jason, this whole thing is really fabulous what you're doing. I think all of our comments on the phone are just to even make it better. I have 2 comments. One is, it would be great if you could add a section in the decision tree kind of above all this stuff, which is something along the lines of, what questions are you trying to answer? Because if someone's kind of new to this or someone has their little piece of the pie, you know, the questions, for example, that I'm interested in from a policy perspective is, you know, did development cause problems? Or is the Shoreline Master Program working? Or things like that. So if there could be a section sort of before you even get to this point in your decision tree of what are the questions you're trying to answer. You know, one of your questions would be, did restoration work in this particular case? The second thing, just to add as a big note, I was thinking about this as I was looking through your webpage, is that you have this from a field perspective. But what would be great to add to this, if you could, would be to add things like reviewing aerial photos and doing other types of monitoring. For example, if you're trying to look at vegetation change in the shoreline area. So other protocols that are not just the field-based protocols would be cool to add as well.
Great, Heather. Thanks. And yeah, you know, and related to your kind of what questions are you trying to answer, that's a great one. And I'm going to keep thinking about that and think of the proper place to put that, because I was talking to about this too, and, you know, he said maybe up front having something that says why monitor, just really basic and broad at the start. So you can incorporate that somewhere.
Hey, Jason, this is Kathy Peters.
Hi, Kathy.
Well, I was kind of thinking after Heather's question of, why are you doing this monitoring? Several of us who work in salmon recovery have been working on these results chains for nearshore work, and it drives you through a set of questions. And this is where the monitoring comes out, and we have to agree on indicators. For instance, the part of the salmon life history, utilizes the nearshore, and so they've broken out key ecological components. And so this work really will help us both identify what it is we're going to monitor for those, like for submerged aquatic vegetation, and then the decision tree then loops back to the actions and your hypotheses for your strategies. So that work is in progress. Thank you for doing this.
Great, thanks, Kathy, and thanks for saying that, because I think you're right. I've sat in on some of those meetings related to everything you just said, and I think I need to get to that a little bit more and make sure that we're hopefully all working together on this and linking up.
Great.
This is Barbara Bennett, and I'm wondering if there's any merit in including the usefulness of zonation inventories, where you get into the low tidal region.
Could you say that one more time, Barbara? I couldn't quite hear the start of what you were saying.
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering. What I'm seeing is all near shore, which is exactly where we ought to be, and the restoration piece. But I'm wondering if there are any reasons to highlight the merit of inventorying biota that are between the high tide and the low tide, the tidal zones.
So getting out more away from shore and including.
Yes.
Okay. That's a good thought. And maybe broadening away from the near shore to that realm would be a good next step.
Well, it depends on the questions that it would answer, and I think the logic that you've put into this is exactly what we would follow. And what I was asking is, would there be a project type that would be supported by that kind of information?
Hey, Jason, this is Kathleen.
Kathleen.
Hi. I was just going to add to that, the Northwest Straits Commission is just finishing up a new bull kelp monitoring protocol. So that is sort of like going to be hot off the press in a couple of weeks. So, I don't know whether that makes sense in your shoreline monitoring toolkit, but I just didn't want that to be, reinventing the wheel or anything, and just let you know that that's in progress.
Cool. I'll get a hold of them.
It's Helen Berry and Terry Klinger approving the protocol.
Yeah, I'll see if they want to include that, because, I think the reason they didn't include that off the bat is, we've done some of that, and it just involves scuba diving, and I wasn't sure if that was too specialized or not, but that's a good thought to include that.
Well, this is a new, simpler one that involves only kayaking. So it's a whole new protocol.
Great, thanks. Okay, any other comments right now? And if not, I'm going to merge back into the PowerPoint realm here. So I wanted to go over just quickly here in the tail end where we're hoping this will go. If people can start using this toolbox, there's kind of this broader thinking of why it would be useful. Number one is to provide effective guidance for how to monitor. 2 is to inform groups on how to move forward in their goals. And 3 is providing a feedback loop of completed projects that can inform future projects. And based on what I've heard people saying throughout this webinar, the way we're doing that right now with the toolbox is linking to other reports or complete projects to inform people planning new projects. So I think what we're not getting at yet is really that data analysis question that Jeff brought up, and then having a feedback loop where people can see what else is going on out there. And that's a tough one to get at, but I think that's where we're hoping to go with part of this, at least. And then to give you a feeling, before we wrap up here, of what my involvement is with this and kind of the next steps, I wanted to be upfront with telling everyone what's going to happen in the next year with this. So as working with the Nearshore work group, we want to keep developing this toolbox. It's at a really good point right now to make it out, to get it out there. There may be some refinement of protocols and development of data management tools. And we also wanted to explore having an equipment library. We don't know what form that will take place, but it seems like some groups are held up by just not having the right gear, or maybe being, just not having the right resources to get that gear. So if there can be a common place where someone could go pick up a stadia rod and a laser level to do beach profiles, or have, a bunch of quadrats stacked up that are the right size so everyone's using the same method, that'd be really useful. And that's open-ended. So if people have thoughts on that, of either having a central location or having a few kind of satellite locations there where there's an office located already, please let me know. And also any other new protocols that could be developed. As Kathleen just mentioned, if you know of a good protocol out there, and, with that bulk help one, it probably is going to be super easy. I can just link it to this so that all the resources are in one place. That is great. And again, this is stuff I'll be working on at some level as part of the Nearshore work group in the next year. Certainly, outreaching to volunteer groups and other entities to promote the use of this is something that will happen. And so I've talked to Island County Beach Watchers about this. If you are involved with a group and you want me to present this either in person or over webinar, I'm happy to do that. And if you're at a point in your monitoring plan where you would like some guidance really on just getting to that next step of taking data, feel free to get a hold of me. So anyone have any comments on these next steps or kind of the level of effort that we'll be putting into this?
Jason, this is Barbara Rosencotter from the San Juans. A couple of outreach to groups that would probably leverage some of your effort would be the Puget Sound salmon recovery lead entities, and also the Marine Resources Committees.
Hey, Jason, this is Heather again. There was talk of doing a tool library for people to borrow equipment and microscopes and things to do shore protocols, shore monitoring. That was talked about a year and a half ago, and it was specifically with regard to the Puget Sound core that DNR was starting. I don't know if that got very far, but there was definitely discussion of having one of those locations be up near Cherry Point or Fidago Bay, kind of in that part of the Sound and Straits. So you may want to check with the Puget Sound Corps to see how whatever happened with that idea.
Great. Thanks, Heather.
Jason, following what Barbara was saying, it might be useful to present this talk with the people of the Northwest Straits Commission. There is a workshop, symposium, whatever they call it, towards the end of the year where all of the MRCs gather to discuss things of interest, and this might be useful there.
Great. Thanks, Alan.
Jason, this is Ian Miller, and I'm wondering, in regards to the data management tools that you list on your next steps here, and on the website, it looks like that's really focused on managing the data that an individual group would collect, but are there any ideas for how to share data across groups?
That's a great question, and one we haven't nailed an answer on, and I think that's where everyone would like to be. So, you know, in regards to the website location, we could have a data upload so people could at least combine their data sets with others. And I think that the next level is challenging, as Jeff mentioned too, like how do you analyze all the data together? And that may be something that we may need to think about resources as data sets emerge. If there's a need to analyze, hopefully we can tackle that. And, you know, the one example I can give is recently just with the nearshore work group and having the Island County Beach Watcher data there is we've been, myself and Casey Rice and Luskin Four and others with Barbara Bennett have been trying to spearhead analyzing a lot of the Island County Beach Watcher data. And it's a great resource. It's all sitting there, and, you know, really just finding the time to analyze it. It's not huge, but it does take time. So I'm not sure how we get to that next level yet. If you have any other ideas, let me know. You know, I'm not sure if just having a data upload section is enough or not.
Yeah, I think I was thinking less about analysis, although that's a great place to go, and just more about, some online database that could be used to, at least at the start, provide a mechanism for archiving and sharing data across groups or through time as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And maybe, I'm thinking of the website now. My website skills are not super amazing, and Google is somewhat limited, but I think if we go that route, I could even spearhead it by putting a lot of our data sets up there. If I can figure out how to have a convenient data upload that doesn't look like just a mess, maybe organized by categories.
Jason, this is Cheryl. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. One possibility two things. One, in response to the suggestion for the Northwest Straits Conference, I'm actually on that planning committee, and so I will bring up this topic as a proposal at our next meeting. And then related to Northwest Straits, they are also putting together a online mapping program called Sound IQ. And there is an opportunity within that program to link data reports. So that's another possibility.
That is great. Thank you for connecting me with since we're on the planning committee. And I should mention, I just popped back to the website here in the references tab. I didn't walk through this because it's just links to other sites. But I do have that Sound IQ linked here. So this is something if folks have 5 minutes sometime to look through this references section, and I have it split into two main categories: websites that have data resources useful for planning monitoring, and also just other resources, other monitoring efforts that are out there. So yeah, I didn't walk you through that one, but that's a great point, and I'll have to keep an eye on that Sound IQ.
Yeah, and just so you know, Jason, Sound IQ is expanding. Jefferson County is soon to be online, and the other counties, at least within the Northwest Straits network, will be added.
Yeah, and this
Excellent.
is Kathleen from Snohomish County. We're also going online with Sound IQ and adding the data that we have to that, and then the rest of the base layers for all the Northwest Straits.
Great. Well, thanks for linking me in with that, and certainly, Cheryl, I'd be happy to be a part of all that when the planning committee moves forward. Okay, let's see. So I have just a few other next steps listed here so that folks know kind of the priorities that are going on out there, and these are things that other people have mentioned as well. I've been giving talks about this over the last few months. So linking to other efforts, we've talked a bit about this, but hopefully we can link to the Encyclopedia of Puget Sound, other PSIMP and Puget Sound partnership efforts. There's other websites like Monitoring Methods, and sounds like maybe the Sound IQ we can link into more. Again, if you have other protocols to develop and add, let me know. We talked about the equipment library a bit, and groups for presentations. So my last one here for down the road is, we've talked about some of these already too, so these are ones that keep coming up, having a metadata upload or a project showcase, how to approach experts for further help, and relation to other monitoring organizations such as SMP and EPA, having a full bibliography or links to taxonomic keys, glossary, and a community forum. These are all things people mention when you talk about these efforts. So if you have any to add to that or any you really want to see highlighted, feel free to shoot me an email, or we can talk about it now if there's something on this list that you really like.
Hey, Jason, have you thought about any linkage with the Nearshore Wiki that Paul Cheragino's doing?
Yeah, so I have a section on that wiki right now for this, and I think I just put the intended use up there and linked it to the website. So
okay.
It's a good thought though, because there could be. Maybe I can try to link it to other things that are on the wiki so that there's a broader network there.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that you should have to link it to everything under the sun. I was just curious.
Yep. All right, well, it's about 11, and I have one more slide, and that is basically a pitch that if we didn't discuss something today, send me comments over email or a call. If it's something to incorporate now, highlight that, and if it's something to add to the down the road list, just so I know what's on people's brains, that's great. And really, I'm just going to remove the word draft from the website in the next week so that at the level that people know it can be used. Again, it's a living document. There's going to be some ongoing maintenance and work on this, and my email and the URL are listed there if you don't have it already. So with that, I'm done. Does anyone have some other points they want to comment on or anything to sum up?
Congratulations on a terrific product.
Well, thanks. All right. Well, in the world of webinars, I think it's best just to say thank you, everybody, for attending. And I look forward to seeing this hopefully used and developed in the future. And I'm sure I'll see a bunch of you coming up at some future meeting.
Thanks so much. It's great.
Great job.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Really nice.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.